Middle-earth is changing. You can feel it in the water, see it in the trees. Yet, due to the mighty efforts of unsung heroes, these fearful changes falter at the Shire. Here, things proceed much as they have for the last 600 years, with happy, peaceful folk, ignorant of the sacrifice which grants them safety. Yet, some remember great deeds, and others may be called upon to perform such again, with one hand holding a pint. This is Blunders and Flagons. Well, hello, and welcome to Blunders and Flagons, the podcast where adventure meets whimsy in the world of The Lord of the Rings. I'm joined by a cast of my brothers and brother-in-law. I'd like for you to introduce yourself. We'll start with the oldest, Daniel.
Hello, my name is Daniel, and I will be playing the ineffable Barrelac Bramblefoot. He goes by Barry to those who know him. He is a bit of an herbalist, loves spending his time in nature, spending long walks out in the Shire. He comes from Needlehole, and he has a family, including some wee tykes and a lovely wife who supports his hobby/profession, being an herbalist. You could expect to find him wandering the green fields and little thickets of Hobbits and the area surrounding Needlehole, looking for herbs with his herbalist satchel, looking like it has sprouted full of variety of herbs for both medicinal and cooking purposes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah, but I prefer to go by Jerry because it's fewer syllables. I am playing the exciting role of one Barty Took from the Tooklands. He sports an Irish accent, though, and it's an awful one. As you see, it kind of melds into whatever it is, because he is unhealthily obsessed with dwarves. Never met one, doesn't know what their accent sounds like, but he just figures the red beards and the absolute just it's just it's Irish. So he lives his life as close to a dwarf as he is able. Often finds himself in taverns and such, looking for reasons to be a courageous warrior, which is not often in the land of the Shire.
G'day. I'm Drew. I'm going to be playing this tiny creature named Banjo Groman, who is a hobbit man from the Hobbit lands. This man, he grew up and he knows he's very proud of his heritage. That's kind of his ting. You know, everyone's got a ting. His thing is he's very proud of his heritage. He comes from a long line of defenders, of archers in the Shire, keeping away pests in some cases, you know, dangerous animals in other cases, and way, way back in some cases, dangerous necromancers. Long line of keeping bad things out of the Shire. You can find this guy twirling his slingshot and practicing at his own homemade shooting gallery in his backyard. There's broken bottles and pieces of cans and jars lying everywhere as straight and true stones have skipped across almost 100 yards to knock a target out of a tree. Very sharp eye, but never too slow to come jaunting to help of a friend or a quick, piece of cake and tea at someone's house. He's not too unfond of going to that either. But yeah, he's just a little hobbit in a big old world, and he's just trying to find his way.
You may have noticed each of our wonderful players are playing Hobbit characters, and that is with a purpose, because we are all joining up within the bounds of the Shire. In the year 1360, which, for those of you who keep a close eye on the Hobbit calendar, is just about 20 years, just shy of 20 years, after Bilbo's adventure with Gandalf and the dwarves, which many are familiar with. And so this game takes place starting in the late fall of the year 1360 Shire Reckoning. But we're excited to run this campaign within the Shire. My name is David, and I will be the lore master, as we have discussed, is the name for the game master within the Lord of the Rings role-playing game, which we'll be playing an adaptation for 5e of that. And I think that's pretty much all the business. Now down to the party, right?
Yes.
Party, literally.
as our adventure begins, we'll find ourselves, as many role-playing games do, within a tavern. And of course, this tavern being within the Shire, Mickle Delving, the capital, if there were such a thing, in Hobbit reckoning, for the land of the Shire within the West Farthing. And at a quaint and comfortable tavern called the Bird and Babe. It is a lovely place where a lot of families come and gather, and actually at this time you'd see that there were indeed several families gathered, a few folks milling about, some having a pint, some enjoying a late dinner. The sun has largely set this evening, and to the tavern up strolls one. Barty, you're the first to arrive. How do you arrive here?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, I know. It's so great. There's a table with two families sitting. There's a few gathered around the fire. There seems to be, as you approach and come in, there are two empty tables. One of them still with a few empty or half-empty flagons, and three other tables that are fairly well crowded. It seems to be a fairly busy night here at the Bird and the Babe.
Well, Barty Took's going to go ahead and stroll on up, rather clog on up loudly, as he's wearing these big old clog-stomping wooden shoes that his toes stick right out the front of. He made them himself, by the way. He's going to clump right on up the stairs and burst in the doors and look around with not a sneer, but like a friendly, angry friendly, if it's possible. He's going to look around and find an open chair that's closest to the bar and take a heavy seat and go, "Beer, please, ale, whatever you've got on tap."
As you walk in, you do see a lot of heads snap and turn towards you, because most hobbits are not familiar with the sound of booted feet, much less wooden clogs within the bounds of the Shire. So you would stand out quite a bit as you came in, but then as they see your short stature and verify you have no beard, kind of, oh, it must be that. You see a couple of rolled eyes, that Barty, oh gosh.
And that's the thing there, see, he's got a reputation, you know.
Yeah, he would definitely stand out.
Well, and everybody knows it's Barty when he's coming in. They hear him before they see him, and everybody knows him. He's the dwarf Hobbit LARPer. The only one they've ever met. So he's also got this brilliant wooden bowl on his head. He also made himself. He's got feathers stuck all over it and stuff. He's got, namely, big old axe strapped to his back. It's just a woodcutting axe. He doesn't actually have a battle axe. It's just a woodcutting axe that his parents would hope he'd become a woodsman with by giving it to him on his 20th birthday. Didn't work. He tooled it up and glued some stuff on it. So now he's looking the part of a beardless dwarf. And he would like some ale, please.
I love Barty so much.
So with a bit of a roll in his eyes, the shopkeeper knows, oh yeah, he likes this ale. He finishes the spit polish, fills the flagon and brings it over. Would you be having anything in the way of a meal today?
Give me a second to wet me whistle, sir. I'll be discovering what I'll be hungry for in just a wee minute.
Very good. Just tap your clog on the ground and we'll get it to you. He'll go back to behind the counter there. Barry, I think you might come in next, so you might approach the tavern here.
Barry enters the tavern, looking like he is just returned from a visit out into the thickets and hedges surrounding Mickle Delving, because he has. He has just come from searching around, seeing what kind of things he could find. His herbalist satchel is overflowing with all kinds of herbs and even some flowers as well that he has picked in his stroll. And he enters the tavern and he seems quite comfortable with the surroundings. He looks around at the different faces within the tavern, and he may even recognize one or two families. Having a family himself, give them a nod as he makes his way toward the bar, and gives a nod to the barkeeper, whose name he remembers is
Jarrett.
And he'll, "Oi, Jarrett, how be you doing today?"
Oh, I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much for asking. You had success in your foraging today, I see.
Oh, I certainly did. There be lots of nettles out there, and I come by a bit of comfrey. I wasn't sure if you'd be interested in that for a bit of your famous tea.
You know me, we always need a bit more of that comfrey around here. Wife uses it for herself, so I'd love to trade with you.
All right. Well, I'd be wanting a nice warm meal and perhaps something a bit of drink before bed.
Happy to help you to it. I think we have just the one table left there. Barty's taking it up. You don't mind sitting with him, do you?
Oh, no, he's harmless. He's a bit, you know those tooks. You know, they're not quite like the rest of us respectable type hobbits. They're tooks, so we put up with them, I suppose. But Barty's harmless. He's just a bit touched in the head, I think. I'm not certain, but I don't mind at all.
Well, thank you kindly. We'll bring it right out to you. I know exactly how you like your pheasant, so we'll bring that with your flagon of ale.
Oh, it's roasted pheasant tonight, is it?
That's right.
Excellent. Make sure you put some of that sage on there. Just nice and toasted.
Happy to.
Very good, very good. Well, it'll be over to the table.
So he turns and heads toward the kitchen. As you nod to the table with the two families sitting at it, the wife is kind of looking at the basket that you have over your... You did describe yourself as having a basket, am I right?
Oh, it's
you had a pouch.
So it's kind of like it's a leather satchel, basically like a knapsack type thing slung over his shoulder. So she wouldn't
be able to see what...
Well, it would be... So it's so stuffed full of herbs that the leather, like the flap, is pushed open, and there's all kinds of... there's chamomile, there's nettles, there's comfrey, there's sage, there's all kinds of herbs. And wherever Barry goes, he smells very strongly of the herbs. So it would be, you know, without even seeing what he has in his satchel, he would be able to tell, you know, oh, he's got loaded with all kinds of goodies.
So she does kind of notice something poking out of the knapsack as you're walking by, and it's, you know, she's kind of, oh, he's got a good haul. You know, you can tell that she's observing your good foraging harvest. But over in due course of time, you get your roasted pheasant and your ale. As you observe the room, it looks like there are 3 young hobbits sitting over by the fire with an elderly hobbit who is telling them a story and is waxing eloquent about the long winter and goes on to describe the fell winter when the wolves crossed over the river and were fought off. And so you hear, you know, a couple of the folks commenting on that story and how outlandish it is. One of the sterner looking fellows at the table, who may, it appears, have had a bit too much to drink. I can't believe you'd be telling that rubbish to these kids. They're never going to have to deal with wolves, not in the Shire.
I suppose Barry might hesitantly, chime in. Well, I don't know about that, sir, but it's best to be prepared, and there's no harm in telling stories of the past. It's fact, you know.
So maybe... He kind of just grunts at you and goes back to his cup.
Barry will probably look over at the barkeeper and just kind of give him a nod toward the guy. I'm like, maybe we need to cut him off, maybe. Just kind of just a gentle nod.
He kind of nods his head. He's like, the last one was probably already half cut. You know, he has that knowing nod in his eyes already.
Nice.
The last member of the troupe would probably show up at this time. Would you describe how Banjo enters the tavern and what he's about?
What time of day is it?
It's just after dusk, so it's beginning to get dark.
Oh, perfect. Because what I've been doing all day, almost since the sun got up, is I've been going around this dang town looking for some striped horror. Some rodent apparently been at Miss Partridge's cabbages again. So I've been going while my brothers are off gallivanting, looking for the other varmints in the area. I've been set to get this striped horror from Mrs. Partridge's garden. So I've been trying to do this all day, and I finally got the sucker. He was right there on the fence, and I heard Mrs. Partridge. She was doing her gardening, and I think she snapped a twig just too loud, and that sucker looks up at her. And right then, I let go of my sling. That feeling, you finally, after all this hard work, got the one I was looking for. I got my payment, coins are jingling in my pocket as I'm walking down to the tavern to get an ale to celebrate. Oh, good feeling. Go up to the door and walk right in and go up to the barkeep. Nod at the pals and friends if I see any. Today's been Today's been rough. Please, an ale for this young, well-worn hobbit.
And Jarrett, as you know, Banjo, you're far too young to have an ale, but I'll be happy to give you that root beer that you always love so much.
Oh, come on. Never, just this one time. I've been searching all day. This rodent, he finally got what he was due.
He nods at you as he pours you the root beer. Oh, yes, I know. It's been a very, very tough day for you, Banjo.
One of these days, I'll get the job of one of my brothers, and I'll be able to come in here and have an ale after a hard day's work, and put my feet up on a settle.
Absolutely. And you know what? Just today, he pulls out a smaller jar, and it's got a bit of a stopper on it. He pops it. A wee bit of my wife's strawberry cordial. It's not alcoholic, but it's still really, really good. And it's actually pretty good for somebody with a cough. And it tastes just perfect in that homemade root beer. Of course, every root beer is homemade in the Shire. But he pours just a wee bit of it in, and he goes to the opposite side of the bar from you because he was close to talk to you. And he slides the flagon down the full length of the bar, and it lands perfectly in your hand.
Well, I suppose maybe I could wait a few more winters before I have some real ale, after I take a big hearty sip. Oh, thank you. Is there anything else to eat? Absolutely famished after today's work.
Of course, we've got some pheasant. I've already prepared a couple plates here in the last few minutes. There's another one on the fire in the pot.
Perfect. Well, can I get one now, or do you want me to wait at a table?
It'll take just a moment to put it together. I'll bring it right out to you if you find a seat.
Righto. Just wave me over. Trot over and look. Look around. What do I see? I'm looking for literally any spot.
So there is one table that still has some empty tankards and dishes on it. And then there's one table that has 2 patrons sitting at it, another table with 3, one with 5, and then one with a couple families sitting close to the fire.
Yeah, I'll sit the one with there's 2. Looks like those guys need a little company.
Oi, Master Gronin. Go ahead and join us if you win.
Oh, howdy there. Barty.
Barty, please, you haven't forgotten my name already, have you?
Oh, forgive me, Barty. It's been a long, hard day.
You look quite tired, lad.
It was the biggest one I'd seen all summer. The little thing just finally got in the right spot at the right time.
Is it a rat, or what are you after today, lad?
Honestly, I thought he was talking about his mother.
I thought it was a chipmunk, but after I hit it with me sling, 'tweren't much left of it to tell what it was.
That's mighty impressive, sir. Mighty impressive indeed.
Oh, what about you? You also seem like you've seen your fill of the day.
Oh, I suppose you could say that. We've been out looking for herbs all day long. Travelled up this way to Mickldeveling, looking for a bit of business. I'm bringing some herb deliveries around town. I heard they might be in need of them, so I decided to make my way over, take the trip, leave my wife and little bairns over at home down in Needlehole.
I'll tell you what though, Banjo, if you look at his lot, he's got a massive bag. He's filled it up to the top.
That's right. Pure profit, this.
You wouldn't have nothing for a prickled arm. I fell in a prickle bush earlier while chasing that varmint. Could use something if you have it.
Certainly, I've got lots of herbs we could use. I suppose a bit of nettle might help with that.
Well, I got a little payment for catching that old rat. How much for a bit of nettle?
Don't mention it, lad. You can have it for free.
Oh, grand.
So
you might want to boil that first, and you've got to mash it into a poultice. Have you never made anything like that before?
I obviously know how to do that. Writes all of what you just said down on a little piece of parchment and tucks it in the nettle in my pocket.
Oh, I don't suppose you've got a mortar and pestle, do you? Be mighty hard to grind up them herbs without a mortar and pestle.
True, I'm sure my family has some. They'd probably use herbs.
Oh, aye, many do.
Can you see that?
They probably do.
He seems to be acting quite consistently with what a young hobbit would. I'm sure someone knows, and I'm sure that I could figure this out, and somebody's done something at some point, and I'm sure it'll be just fine.
Exactly.
At this point, Jarrett would, the 2 portions of pheasant, they're adorned with some rosemary and thyme. You can see on top there's not just the bird itself, but there is some what seem to be chopped potatoes, as well as some fried tomatoes. Not because they rhyme, but because they accompany the dish quite well.
Well, Barty's gonna see this spread, and he's gonna raise his eyes. You might even see a bit of drool coming out the side of his chin, and be like, "Oi, Jarrett, those look excellent."
Indeed they do. We're quite proud of our pheasant. In fact, so proud, we've sold out completely tonight.
You're bloody kidding me.
Oh, Bertie.
Oh, we do have a couple other offerings as well. I've got soup still. There's a lovely stew that my wife's recipe. Some lovely chowder, if you'd like.
You know, soup doesn't sit well in me tummy.
Oh.
Too much water, you see, makes a warrior weak.
We've got various breads and biscuits. Normally we'd save those for afternoon tea, but we've got some left over from today. I could make you a plate of sweets and pastries.
Well, that sounds perfect.
Very good. Anything else for you other masters here?
No, thanks, Jarrett.
Well, you've done yourself, Master Jarrett. Excellent spread.
Anything I said was with a mouthful of food.
Oh, good. Thanks.
I'm already eating away.
Been a busy day, and we're very thankful for the business, and please tell your friends. the best tavern in Mickledelving, at least the only tavern in Mickledelving. We strive to make a good standing here in the West Farthing, despite the Green Dragon's reputation.
Well, it's a long way to the Green Dragon from here.
Well, yes, they're part of the Farthing, so people try to hold us to the same standard just because they're part of the same province.
You know, Jarrett, we'd always make the extra trip for you, sir.
I greatly appreciate that. Well, I'd best be off to get your pastries. Enjoy. He goes off back, kind of a little spring in his step. You know, he's very proud of his establishment and happy to serve. As you continue chatting amongst yourselves and catching up on the whats and hows and whys, you hear that the story the elder was telling to the children kind of wrapped up, and in walks someone of high reputation, in fact. You notice he's dressed a little more fancy than most of the folks here. A bit of a red waistcoat showing underneath his robe. As you can see, most people are dressed fairly warmly, and he is as well. But the thing that stands out to you is not the red waistcoat, although it is a nice waistcoat for any of you who look closely. The thing that stands out is the feather in his cap, of course, signifying the fact that he is a sheriff of the West Farthing, and as such responsible for many comings and goings in the Shire, and most notably in charge over the bounders in the area. And so you would know that he has a fair amount of authority as far as keeping the peace and taking care of things in the area. He walks in, he quickly removes that hat with the feather, not before you notice. And it's not just any feather, it's a large plumed red feather that is very decorative and appears to have been dyed to that very vibrant red color that definitely stands out in the fire and torchlight here in the tavern, as the sun has fully set by this point. And he comes in with a very bedraggled expression on his face. "Oh, Jarrett, I just don't know if we'll be able to have any sort of relaxing this year. It's just been quite so terrible." And Jarrett comes over quickly. He pours him, an ale, and he brings him some sort of food. You can't quite see well. He's just kind of standing at the bar, quickly shoveling in some stuff into his ample belly, even for a hobbit. Not too tight for the belt, but almost causing it to bulge over. So upon receiving that, he drinks and enjoying his flagon, and turns to survey the room and spies a glint of steel on the back of a certain young hobbit. "Excuse me, what have you got doing with that axe in the tavern?"
Oh, you're talking to me?
"Yes, the only hobbit in the tavern with an axe with bare steel in my farthing."
You might be surprised to know it's actually not bare steel. It's just regular old steel, first of all. Secondly, it's rather a long story. Basically, my mum and dad met my dad gave it to me. They're both woodcutters and they wanted me to be part of it. But as you can see, I'm rather dwarfish, so I'm not a woodcutter. It's just part of me get up, that's all, honest.
Barty Took.
Of course. Who else would it be?
You're not a dwarf, Barty. You can't be carrying steel weapons in the Shire. How many times have I told you?
I didn't steal it, honest. It was given to me.
He hangs his head, sighs, and takes another drink. How shall I help hobbits when they can't help themselves? Oh, dear.
I absolutely hate this sheriff guy.
I'm assuming those of us who are from the West Farthing would recognize which of the two sheriffs of the West Farthing this is.
You would. So you would recognize this as Sheriff Bolger.
That makes sense.
Typically, there are 3 sheriffs per farthing. You would know that Sheriff Bolger is not exactly the top dog on the pile. He tends to push his weight around a little bit, pun intended.
Of course.
Being a Bolger, he is a bit tendency towards overeating, even for a hobbit, tending towards more like 8-10 meals a day instead of the typical 6. And those meals do tend to be closer to twice what the normal hobbit would eat. Sheriff Bolger is well known for, being demanding, but, having a high standard, which he holds all others to. Still, part of the sheriffs and an important piece of the peacekeeping authorities within the Shire. But at this point, he kind of just puts his head in his hands and is kind of shaking and, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he invites himself to your table and pulls out a chair and sits down, waving his hand. And you see that Jarrett, already recognizing, has come back with a 3-tiered plate. What appears to be savory sandwiches on the bottom, several pastries and breads on the middle, and a few more dessert-type delicacies on the top, which he tends to keep for just such emergencies as when Sheriff Bolger comes in. He places it on the table. All right, you lads, is there anything else I can get for you? And for you, Sheriff Bolger?
Oh, no. Fine by me. Thanks again for the strawberry cordial. Tell your wife thanks.
Oh, yes, strawberry cordial, yes, please. I would enjoy a bit of that. And you can tell that he almost winces, and
no.
he goes, yes, of course, Sheriff, right away. We'll be right back with that. Anything else? I'll be back. And he goes and runs to the back.
Oh, dude, I'm never getting anything nice from this guy again. I've screwed it by saying thank you.
It's all about timing.
And so I nudge the sheriff as he's mid-drink, maybe almost spilling his drink on him. I say, Sheriff, I couldn't notice you're a little, let's say, unhappy when you walked in. Wouldn't be a rodent problem by chance. I just got quite heavily paid, and my brothers are out in a different farthing dealing with some bigger rodents, so I'm left to deal with these parts.
As you nudge him, he barely, literally taking a bite of a roll at the same time, and it kind of shoves the whole thing in his mouth. In fact, the sheriff was stretched so thin. Very thin right now. Was stretched so thin. And he just shoves another roll in his mouth. There's crumbs just tumbling. Another swig of the ale, washes it down, and takes a breath. And he eats another roll before continuing on. Well, you see, there's the other sheriffs. They've been called off to other parts of the Shire. Left the patrolling of the Mickle-Delving area all the way to Hobbiton just for me. Of course, I wouldn't deign to go so far on an empty stomach. He starts eating another one of the savories from the bottom and belches loudly, holding up his cup as he drains the last drop of it. Just stretched so thin, so thin, so thin. And he continues delving into his platter of goodies.
So Barty doesn't have a rather strong stomach for this obscene scene. So rather hoping to get out of this situation while still not having had eaten anything, by the way, asks rather casually, do you need help with checking some borders or something? I'm rather well known for helping.
He almost chokes on what he's eating. Your help Well, Barty, of course, you must realize that the patrolling of the boundaries, the roads, and the farthing is solely the work of the bounders. Now, there perhaps could be, I suppose... And he kind of looks around and he's checking to see the room. It looks like a few have left. It's now a little quieter. Perhaps I might have something that I could use your help with, seeing as how we're stretched so thin. I'm sure you're well aware that And at this point, Jarrett would come back with a slender-looking glass of cordial. Of course, not in a mug, but in a tall glassware vessel. Sheriff Bulger quickly shoots. Yes, quite tasty. Excellent recommendation. I do appreciate it. And sets the glass down. I'll have another ale as well. And he hands it into Jarrett's hands, who in his other hand, he did bring a plate of a few pastries and rolls. Sets it down in front of Barty as well.
That's the stuff.
Hurries off once again, swinging by one of the other tables, just picking up some dishes as he goes. Well, yes. The Yule Festival is right around the corner. It's a fortnight away. As the other sheriffs have been called away to other parts of the Shire, I, of course, have been left to do all the planning as well as the patrolling of the Shire with my team of bounders, which of course is preposterous. This is plenty of work for the entire team, and being left with only a fraction of it, I'm in over my head, I might say. Perhaps I could use your help, but you would be quiet about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, Barty, glad that the eating is slowed for this gentleman, nods in order not to break character, and absolutely, sir. Point in the right direction and I'll help you out.
Normally, this would also be work for a bounder. I could get into trouble simply for involving you lot. Not that I'm sure you wouldn't go about it with the same prestige and je ne sais quoi. They wouldn't know French. It's Elvish. French is Elvish.
A certain je ne sais quoi.
Suspension of disbelief. Let's go.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
It's very important. Can I trust you to do that?
I'm well known for my discretion. You will have it.
Are you, Barty?
I don't know about his discretion, but you don't need to worry about that, Master Bulger, Sheriff Bulger. I think we can take care of anything might need be taken care of. We're not exactly bounders, but I suppose we could be some help if we can.
You see, it is a rather awkward position I'm in because I must ask you to do what a bounder might do without the authority of a bounder. If you were, say, put in a precarious position, of course I would deny being involved, whatever. Of course you would, of necessity, je ne sais quoi, would be taking responsibility for your own actions. Therefore, it is important that you are not caught. Further, it is important that you are not mentioning my name, and if you do, it will be, of course, denied. And, of course, being a sheriff, and you being simple hobbits, you would be left on your own. I can't stress this point enough.
I'm just nodding my head to everything he says. So like, yep, that sounds pretty good to me.
All right, let me see if I understand you proper, Sheriff Bulger. What you're asking us to do is do the job of a bounder without the authority of a bounder and without the backing of a sheriff. And if we're caught or found out, you'll deny any kind of connection and we'll be left to hang on our own toes.
You know, Master Barry, you've always had such a way with herbs and words. That's what I always say about you. I've always said it, and I always will.
He has, ever since I've known him.
I don't know about words.
Herb and werb. Words and words.
And as Barry's finished his delicious rosemary pheasant, he would have got his pipe out, packed it with a very unique blend of pipeweed, mixed with various herbs, but featuring a bit of sage, just for a bit of flavor.
You'd notice that is commonplace. At the other table, there appear to be three. You'll notice that they're probably goose keepers from southern part of the West Farthing, and they're also sitting back and smoking their pipe over towards the fire. A bit out of earshot, actually, which is probably why Sheriff Bulger was comfortable sharing some more information.
Yeah, I need to get a nice little pipe prop.
Got a fake Sherlock Holmes pipe.
There you go. That's what I need right there.
So as you take out out your pipe and you pack it. He goes on to describe a little bit more about the work. Well, of course, I couldn't trust you to patrol the Shire. That I'll have to do with myself and the Bounders. However, because of the Yuletide and my responsibilities therewith, I could pass upon to you a series of tasks. Perhaps if you accomplish the first one, which I'll admit I'm not quite sure how I would go about it. But I can send you in the right direction, and should you succeed, it will help me in my efforts considerably. Yes.
You're on.
Well, go on.
All right, I'm game if these lads are.
This mission, everyone in the West Farthing knows. The best food to be found anywhere is, of course, at the Green Dragon. And this he says as Jarrett is walking up and about to check on you, and he hears the Green Dragon, and he just rolls his eyes, and he's like, you just see him kind of seethe inwardly and turn back around and go to the back. You hear a clatter of pots and pans.
Well, you do have one of the more prestigious opinions on food, and we all trust your opinion on food, obviously.
You got him there, Fatty B.
I beg your pardon. No one's called me that since I was a young one, and you had better mind your tongue.
Forgive a young hobbit for acting as a young hobbit acts.
Well, I'll think about it.
I go hee 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 and tot back and forth.
He is aggro to you, so
Roll for initiative.
he throws a pastry at your head.
Quick dodge.
He does grab one of the sweets off the top, take a bite of it as he continues on. So what I need, because of my lack of Bounders, I need the best food in all the Shire to be present at the Yuletide. And that, my friends, is of course the legendary Boffin's Crock. The famous mushrooms and thyme stew that they make at the Green Dragon. It's not the same as anywhere else. Many have tried over the years to duplicate the recipe to create something that stands up to this fantastic dish. No one can do it. So I must send you to Hobbiton, to the Green Dragon Inn, to find and duplicate their recipe.
So there's this guy who works at the Green Dragon in Hobbiton who makes a soup called Boffin's Crock, right? Soup. And we're supposed to bring it to here, there, wherever the feast is. Soup.
Give him something, man. Come on. I'm like gesturing at Barry. Help him.
He watches you as you convey this with your dry heaves in between punctuating syllables. That makes me hungry, and he grabs some more of the rolls and starts shoveling them in his face. But he does have the general gist. At the Green Dragon, they serve the best food in the Shire, which is Boffin's Crock. It's known as Boffin's Crock, their mushroom and thyme soup. Where they get it from, I don't know. That, of course, is why I'm sending you. By any means necessary, obtain either the soup itself, the recipe, the ingredients needed, however it can be done, so that we can assemble it for the feast.
Is kidnapping on the table?
If it is, I don't want to know about it.
Say no more.
This could literally go any direction, dude. This sheriff has opened Pandora's box. He's just like, as long as you kind of stick to my instructions, you'll be okay.
But let me tell you, if you fail and you try to pass off some second-rate soup on me, I'll know. I have tasted Boffin's Crock more times than anyone in Mickle Delving, and I will know. He has another roll.
Well, you said the task, so I'm guessing there's more than just this. What else do you have for us there, Sheriff?
I'd like to see that you can accomplish this first. And then, depending on that, if you are trustworthy, and I have my contacts in Hobbiton, they'll be able to tell me if you have been true to this task. It shouldn't take you more than 2 days to return with the crock.
Piece of cake.
The legendary Boffin's Crock. Dude, this is like the Holy Grail.
For hobbits, yes.
More like the holy fail.
I am King Arthur.
All right.
You can find me if I'm not here. I'll most likely be at the post office. I've got to mind that as well as all my other obligations when the other sheriffs are away.
Oh, you certainly are stretched quite thin, Sheriff Bolger. Barry will eye the waistline and see the leather belt that's straining desperately around Bolger's waist.
In fact, as you say that, he's actively loosening his belt. I'm well renowned for my self-control. Ratchets it loose another ratchet.
Quite right.
Well, he pats his stomach. It appears I've cleaned out old Jarrett again. Looks like I'll be off. Time for the night rounds and perhaps a midnight snack. And he gets up from the table, his thighs sticking a bit to the sides of the chair as he gets up, and gracefully exits the bird and babe.
Oh,
Well, that was gratuitous.
wow.
All right, lads. Sounds like we've got a bit of a journey out of us. I suggest we get a good night's rest and a nice filling breakfast from Master Garrett and be on the road early as we can.
Here, here. I say sleepily, rubbing one eye and yawning with my banky in one hand. I've really fallen into the young hobbit.
How old is this young hobbit? Have we decided?
He's like 6.
He's 60 or something.
I put on my character sheet 36, but I kind of like him being like a
think
like
16.
20, 22.
Yeah, still in his
that
tweens.
tweens.
He can't drink at 22?
Nope.
When is the legal drinking age of hobbits?
Like 30, I think.
This is our Middle Earth. We can make it whatever we want to.
I kind of like it, but I think they do allow the kids to smoke though. They do.
Well, I mean, you can shoot a gun before you can go to war in America, so...
Hobbiton is like America.
Make Hobbiton great again.
Stop. Okay, anyways.
Make the Shire great again.
Jarrett comes back. Will you masters be staying in the inn here for the evening? Are you off to a different part? How can I help accommodate?
If you're amenable, Master Garrett, I have a bunch of herbs that might need a home, and I suppose you might be able to use them in your inn, at least most wise of them. Would you be amenable to trading a bit of these herbs for perhaps a room for myself and Barty here and Banjo?
He kind of looks over towards behind the bar. Well, why don't you go ahead and make a persuasion check? Just roll a d20 here, and we'll say you get a little bit of a bonus for having some objects to trade that are intrinsically worthwhile.
Okay, I got a 19.
Easy money.
Or easy no money, as the case is.
Did you roll that in the chat?
Yes, I did.
I don't know why I didn't see it. I see. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew where you were rolling.
I wanted to make sure you weren't cheating.
No, I knew you weren't cheating.
I
just
rolled a
wanted to make
22!
sure.
Look at that.
He says, well, of course, I do greatly appreciate the herbs that you give us. I need to replenish my seasoning supply, so if you have any of the seasoning herbs, we've need of those. Of course, my home supply of nettles and comfrey I've already taken. That would be wonderful if you could help me to restock. Of course, I could give you a room. I have one room with 4 separate beds, so that would be more than accommodating for your troop here. Are you all staying in the same accommodation?
Either way
say
would work
it
for
fits.
me. You could just take all those and separate them. That's perfect.
Oi, that'll be working for me.
I mean, if it's free...
That'll work for me.
Nothing's free, lad.
Haven't you learned Tanstoffel? My dad taught me that the other day. It's called Tanstoffel. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. It's an acronym. You know what an acronym is?
What? I don't know what you're talking about, lad.
I think he's the one touching the head.
I think you might be right.
So Jarrett picks up the dishes from the table. I couldn't help but overhear just a wee bit about the Green Dragon. Are you working with Bolger here?
Nope.
Well, you know Master Bolger. He's always interested in more food. He sent us up to grab him some of that famous soup up by the Green Dragon. He wants some of that Buffin's crock.
If you ask me, it's more like Buffin's crap.
You wouldn't happen to know anything about that recipe, would you?
He kind of takes a moment. All I know is I can't duplicate it no matter what I try. You'd think, as it's known as mushroom and thyme soup, I've tried so many combinations. I've tried with a chicken broth, I've tried with a goose broth, I've tried with cream broth, an herb base. I've tried with so many different variations with the mushrooms and the thyme, and it just never comes out quite right. I have a feeling It's got to do with the mushrooms they use. But I stay so busy here, I've not had time to really track it down, and people don't come here for Boffin's crock. They come for my wife's famous pheasant.
What if, and hear me out, what if we get you all the mushrooms we can find from up there, bring them down here, help you run the tavern or the inn, so you can try to make the soup?
Are you all right? Did you eat something off?
No, everything's fantastic. Soup.
Sorry about that. I could certainly try, of course. It would depend on how busy we were and if I had the time, but I'd be happy to try to help if help were needed.
That's really nice. I like that.
Well, we aren't sure exactly what we're gonna do yet, but we might be asking for your help.
I'll certainly try. My wife does most of the cooking and I largely serve it, but I'm sure I could get her to help if we could find that recipe and use it here. I'm sure it would help somewhat with our sales.
That's for the future, but as for the now, I'm beat. To the bird and the babe.
To the bird and the babe.
And drink it all to the dregs. And Jarek, would you want any help with these dishes? As I pick up a couple here and there around the table.
Oh, well, of course, you fine youngster, you're just always out for helping. Sure, if you want to collect some of them up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll go around, get a rag, wipes down.
As you're helping him, he asks you, now, when Sheriff Bolger was talking to you, did he tell you where the other bounders have gone? I've noticed that the other two sheriffs and a large part of the bounders have left.
Oh, them and my brothers, too. Said they were called somewhere for bigger varmints or something. But I hear tell something about going to different farthings. None to tell what for, none to tell why, none to tell how many. But all Freddy Bolger says is he is beat. No one to help him here, no one to help him there, no one to help anywhere. So he just helps us to pick out some food for him. Other than that, seems like he's probably managing everything else on his own fairly well. Looks to me like he's just a bit of a whiner.
He nods his head. We all know that about Bolger. And he goes along with you and loads up the sink, gets washing on the dishes, and before long he points you all to your room. It's just down the corner from the tavern. There's a door at the very back that he leads you through, and there's probably 5 or 6 fairly well furnished rooms, and he walks you past 2 of them to the middle door, indicates that this is the one for you. He holds the door open and shows you the 4 beds, wardrobe freestanding on its own. It's not fancy. It's a hole in the ground, and as a hobbit, you can live there.
That's all I've ever wanted.
That's all most hobbits want.
Looks nice and cozy.
Oh, I'm in that bed as soon as possible.
You all plan to spend your night here. Is there anything you'd like to do before you wrap up the end of your first day in the Shire?
Well, Barty's going to remove his wooden shoes. They're not very comfortable, as you can imagine. His bowl hat comes off and he places it almost reverently right at the foot of his bed, next to the shoes, lays his axe right across the front. Mr. Orwin, the man that really taught him about the dwarves, told him how reverent they were with their gear, so he tries to be such with his own gear. That's why he pretends like he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the axe.
I'm just gonna really just with a big stretch and yawn, take the spenders off, slunk in the bed, topple pillows as many as I can above my head and just kind of bury myself under the fluff of pillows and blankets. So you basically can't see any of me. It's just a mound of messed up sheets and everything.
Just as you're about to settle in, Jarrett comes in with a bit of a tray, and he sets it next to the small fireplace that's sitting in one corner. For your breakfast tomorrow morning, masters, we serve second breakfast in the tavern. Of course, you'll be needing some refreshment before then. A small tray, you can see there's an iron kettle, and there's an attachment for hanging it over the fire. There in the room.
Perfect.
And there's a few small biscuits, of course, and just a few dried goods that are assembled for you to eat first thing when you wake up.
Well, thank you, Master. We appreciate that. Have a good evening.
Of course, and thank you as well. Feel free to let me know if I can help you at all with anything else.
I just had a hand up out of my blanket pile. Oh, winds be kind to you, Master Garrett. And I just plop out back in the bed. Just...
Fine young lad. And he exits out of the room, closing the door softly behind him, and closing your first day in the Shire with the promise of food as soon as you want it in the morning.
What a great way to go to sleep.
Just like a hobbit always wants. Assurance of their next meal.
Yep.
So good, dude.
Like a security
Oh my
blanket.
gosh. This is so good.
Barry would actually, as things are winding down in the room, he would take out his whatever herbs have been promised to Garrett. He would take those out because they're still, just like fresh plucked from the ground, still with the roots and maybe a bit of dirt on them. So he would take the time to carefully, go by the fireplace and trim off any withered leaves or flowers or anything like that. And he will have a small knife that he'll use to trim those off and just toss them into the fire, and just working quietly to himself, clean up those herbs and bind them with a bit of string, lay them out neatly. Perhaps there's a dresser or something he could lay them out on, prepare them for trade.
Yep, you find that as you need. There's not so much a dresser or something, but there's a nightstand next to each bed, and you find it quite easy to get your goods prepared. So with that, I think we'll close our first night in the Shire. Hope you've enjoyed your cozy Hobbit core start to the adventure here. Really enjoying it. Lots of nice fall feels here with the stews and the food, and it's all very hobbity, hobbity so far, which is just a shock.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Shock and Hobbit.
Right, well, when we come back next time, you'll be beginning your journey to Hobbiton in search of the world-renowned, or at least Shire-renowned, Boffin's Croc at the Green Dragon, and seeing what adventures ensue from that point. So, you've got a long walk ahead of you. Better get some good night's sleep.
I'm gonna sleep so well. Dream of stews and brews.
Blunders and Flagons is a podcast by David Lennox with Daniel and Drew Lennox and Jerry Hoppmann. Content for this adventure is inspired by Tolkien's Lord of the Rings universe. The system and certain names and details are adapted from the Free League's work, The Lord of the Rings Roleplaying and Shire Adventure Starter Set for 5e. Sound effects are from freesound.org. The intro music in this episode was Dead Forest by Brian Bolger. Other music created using Suno Premium. If you like this podcast, please give us a thumbs up and a like, subscribe to our channel, and look for us on your favorite social media under Blunders and Flagons Podcast. Thank you for listening, and remember, if you don't mind your feet, there's no knowing where you might get swept off to.